What separates a man who merely survives from a man who builds empires? It's not birthright, not luck, not even brute intelligence. It's the mindset, the king's mindset. He was just a boy the first time he saw the crown. Not on a king, not in a castle, but in a book. A tattered, sun-washed book left on a church bench, half scripture, half story. The page he turned to showed a worn-out painting of Solomon seated on his throne, eyes steady, mouth silent, yet somehow speaking volumes. Beneath the image, one line was underlined in fading ink. "He who rules his spirit is mightier than he who takes a city." That sentence struck him like lightning. He didn't understand it fully then, but something inside him woke up. A whisper that grew louder with every disappointment he faced. Every time he saw the world reward loudness over depth, chaos over clarity, image over integrity. Years passed. Life tested him. He watched friends chase every shiny thing, status, likes, money, moments of hollow applause, but he felt empty playing that game. Not because he thought he was better, but because something deeper kept tugging at him. It wasn't about being seen, it was about being solid. He began to realize true kingship has nothing to do with wearing a crown. It's about commanding yourself before you try to command anything else. It's about waking up, not to prove something to the world, but because you can't bear the idea of dying with your potential still locked inside you. It's in how you respond when life punches you in the face. Do you react, or do you choose? He remembered that painting of Solomon, the stillness in his eyes. That was the kind of man he wanted to be. A man who doesn't just move with the tides of life, but one who studies the currents and builds his own ship, who architects his life with intention, who doesn't follow the script the world hands him, but writes his own line by line in pain and perseverance. And now, here you are, reading this, feeling that fire beneath your chest. You know the feeling, don't you? That deep stirring when you hear the word king. Not because you crave dominance, but because something ancient within you remembers. It's not ego, it's not fantasy, it's memory. A soul memory calling you back to who you were always meant to be. The king, not of others, but of yourself. Not to impress the world, but because you cannot stand the idea of wasting the man you were meant to become. The question is, will you listen to that fire, or will you bury it under distraction and doubt, and live the rest of your life as a servant to your own fears? That's not ego, that's memory. A deep soul memory calling you back to the throne you abandoned when you got too comfortable being average. Let me ask you something. When did you stop thinking like a king? Was it when they told you to be realistic? When you failed and decided maybe you weren't cut out for greatness? Or when the world rewarded your conformity more than your courage? Whatever it was, that was the moment the crown slipped from your head. But here's the thing, you can pick it back up, because the king's mindset isn't inherited. It's forged in the quiet, in the discipline, in the way you choose to master your emotions instead of letting them master you. Let's go deeper. The king doesn't chase validation. He doesn't beg for approval. He doesn't look around to see who's clapping. He's not performing. He's building. Because he understands a kingdom is not built on applause. It's built on discipline, vision, and the invisible hours nobody sees. Do you understand how dangerous you become when you stop waiting to be chosen? When you stop auditioning for roles you were born to own? That's when the world shifts. Not when they crown you, but when you crown yourself. But here's the catch. With the crown comes the weight. Leadership isn't glamorous. It's lonely. Responsibility isn't sexy. It's sacrificial. You will be misunderstood. You will lose people. You will outgrow comfort. But isn't that the price of power? Look back in history. Every true king, from Marcus Aurelius to Solomon, faced unbearable pressure, relentless trials, and isolation. Yet they chose mastery over mediocrity. They chose long-term legacy over short-term pleasure. Because kings don't live for the moment. They live for eternity. Now let's talk about power. Most people think power is control, but real power is restraint. You want to know the mark of a king? He doesn't flex to prove he's strong. He doesn't explode when he's angry. He's the man who walks into a room and doesn't need to say a word, because his presence speaks before his mouth ever does. That's power. When you're so anchored in who you are, nothing external can destabilize you. You don't rush to defend your name, because your actions are already doing that. You don't argue with fools, because your energy is too valuable for noise. You don't chase, because kings don't beg. They attract, not because of charisma, but because of clarity. Let's stop here. Do you even know what you want? Because if you don't, the world will decide for you. A king without a vision becomes a slave to distraction. Purpose is what separates a tyrant from a true king. The tyrant dominates because he's afraid. The king leads because he's certain. And that certainty comes from one thing: knowing your mission. Not the one your parents gave you. Not the one society suggests. The one that keeps you awake at night. The one that scares you because it's so big it would demand everything from you. The king's mindset doesn't run from that fear. It steps into it. Because fear for the king is a compass. It points to where the growth is. You know why most people stay small? Because they confuse peace with passivity. But peace doesn't mean easy. Peace means alignment. It means waking up every day and knowing you're moving towards something that matters. Even if it's hard, especially because it's hard. Now let's address emotions. This might shock you, but the king feels deeply. He doesn't suppress. He refines. He doesn't explode. He channels. Because emotional sovereignty is the highest form of power. Imagine a man who can sit in his anger and not lash out, who can feel grief and not collapse, who can walk through betrayal without losing his honor. That man is unstoppable, because he's no longer ruled by what happens to him. He is ruled by the standards he sets within him. So what's your standard? Are you living reactively or intentionally? Every decision you make is either building your empire or burning it. Every moment you give to distraction is a moment stolen from your destiny. So stop pretending like time is unlimited. Your reign has an expiration date. And the question isn't, will you build something? The question is, will it outlive you? Because kings don't just live. They leave legacies. Not just in gold and structures, but in values, in people, in culture, in character. And that starts with how you show up when no one's watching. It starts in how you treat the people you could easily ignore. It starts with how you carry yourself in the silence. That's the testing ground. That's the forge. Let me tell you a secret. The greatest kings were not made on the throne. They were made in exile, in obscurity, when they had nothing but their mindset. And if you're there right now, in the shadows, in the struggle, in the silence, don't curse it. Use it. This is where you sharpen the sword. This is where you grow the spine. this is where you rise. Because the king's mindset isn't loud. It doesn't boast. It doesn't rush. It moves with certainty. It speaks with clarity. It lives with purpose. And when that man enters the world, he doesn't just take space. He transforms it. He stood at the edge of the hill, staring out over the city, its lights flickering like distant stars, its noise dulled by the wind. It was a place he often came to think, to breathe, to remember. Tonight, something felt different. He had spent years living like a ghost in his own life, following rules he never questioned, chasing goals that weren't his, fitting into frames built by other people's expectations. He had mastered the art of being acceptable, but forgotten what it meant to be alive. And then the question hit him, not as a whisper, but a roar. Will you keep living like a subject in someone else's kingdom? The words cut deep, because deep down he knew. He had been bowing to false kings his whole life. Fear, comparison, comfort, approval. He had handed over his crown long ago, and forgotten that he ever wore one. But what if he could take it back? Not by storming palaces or proving his worth to the world, but by conquering the one thing that truly needed ruling: himself, his emotions, his doubts, his distractions, his impulses. Because the true battlefield was never out there. It was within. And when a man masters himself, his focus, his habits, his values, there's nothing left to fear. No opinion that can shake him, no loss that can break him, no failure that can define him. Only purpose, only clarity, only the quiet, unshakable confidence of a man who knows who he is and where he's going. So now I ask you, will you keep living like a subject in someone else's kingdom? Or will you reclaim your crown? Not to rule over others, but to rule your own life like a king. Because the world doesn't need more followers of empty trends. It needs men who've conquered themselves and are ready to build something eternal.